Exposure to high stress can sometimes fuel the type of resiliency necessary to help us thrive in challenging times. We'll talk with a former litigator and firefighter whose lived experience as the first, the few, and the only in high-stress environments now serves as a foundation to help others perform in high-pressure situations on this episode of the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast.
From Flourish DX, this is the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. As workplace mental health has become a global priority, there's a greater focus on addressing psychosocial hazards. Each episode, we look at psychological safety from an occupational health and safety perspective. Let's talk Psych Health and Safety.
Welcome to this week's Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. I'm your host, Dr. I. David Daniels, and I want to thank you for tuning in. Each week, we seek to increase awareness of the importance of psychological health and safety by learning from the lived experiences, research, and expertise of our guests, as well as advocating strategies to reduce harm and minimize vulnerability to psychosocial hazards in the American workplace. The primary focus of this podcast is to get our viewers and listeners to see and appreciate the importance of psychological health and safety as a system to identify, assess, and mitigate psychosocial hazards and to reduce psychosocial risk and harm that's associated with those risks when these hazards are left unmitigated. While progress has certainly been made, there is a lot of damage to clean up from circumstances, situations, organizations, groups, and exposures that really weren't addressed or even talked about in the past. Again, this progress is important, but there are humans involved in all of these situations, and humans are going to need, and particularly in situations where there isn't a focus on psychological health and safety, humans need the ability to be able to survive in those situations, to be able to thrive in some, and to get better. And there aren't a lot of folks out there. There are some, but it's really important to find people who can help us, because often when I'm stressed myself, when I'm in a situation where I can't necessarily see my way out, I need others to help me. So it's important to have people who understand high stress situations, high pressure situations, and can help me or help you or help us in those situations to be able to come out of it and to be better. My guest for this episode is pretty good at that. My guest has a really interesting background in really high stress situations, and the story that you're going to hear will help many of you today. And she's helping others to be able to be their best self, to bring their strongest case for business and for other interactions. And we're just going to dive right into it and have this conversation, and looking forward to this discussion over the next little less than an hour or so. So here's my first question. Who is Shannon Sedlacek?
You know, I thought about this question, and the temptation, I think, is always to kind of list off the easy resume ticks, right? And you know, your audience is smart. They can look me up, and they can figure it out on the podcast. But I thought, since we're talking about psychological health, it might be a little more edgy for me to start with what I don't want you to know about me. Right? I mean, okay. I can list off all the things that are amazing, and it might be more fun to talk about the vulnerable underbelly, right? The things that nobody wants to say on a podcast. So I have as you know, Chief, I have an unusual background. I started out life as a litigation attorney. I left practicing law because I did not want to become the jerk that I saw I was becoming quickly. Did not want to model the senior partners and emulate their behavior. I got out after, I call them 7 dog years. So it felt like a full career. I joined the fire service as an old lady, and I flunked out of my first fire academy. I was fired, actually, for saying the F word.
Okay.
Actually, I was fired because the chief of training hated me, but he wanted to fire me for a reason, so he decided to fire me for saying the F word, because apparently I was the only person in the 16 weeks that ever uttered the F word.
Oh, imagine that.
I was disciplined in my fire department for calling another firefighter and holding another firefighter accountable for insubordination on an emergency fire scene. I'll say that again because that's a really awesome one. I was disciplined and written up for holding another firefighter accountable for being insubordinate in an emergency scene. And the insubordination, he fully admitted that he was completely insubordinate to my direct order.
Wow.
Let's see, what's another good one? After that, I was number 1 on the captain's promotion. So you promoted me from firefighter to lieutenant, which is a huge, bright star in my career. First female ever in the history of my department. So big deal. And I was passed over, not by you, but by the next chief in line, who clearly wasn't able to promote a female into an upper level position and deal with the flack that he was going to have to deal with for a woman in a high level leadership. How's that for starting out?
Okay. Wow. So my I wish I could say that these kinds of stories are unique, but they aren't. They aren't unique to the fire rescue service. They aren't unique to the public sector in general. They aren't unique to the private sector either. They're not unique to humanity, that we have, unfortunately, people who talk the game about, taking care of people and doing the right thing until it comes down to actually doing the right thing, and right thing based on the words often that they themselves have uttered. So these organizations who talk about, oh yes, we're an equal opportunity employer, until the opportunity comes up and you promote or hire the same people all the time. You certainly know these statistics, but for those who don't, the fire rescue service in the United States has a lower percentage of those who identify as female than the U.S. Marines. It's about half, and there are these persistent excuses, reasons, all kinds of other stuff about why we can't find women to do the work. And I just don't buy any of them. And I'd say that to any organization who says we can't find human beings. No, you just don't have an environment where those human beings, A, want to be there, and B, want to stay. And even if they want to stay, we'll be successful, because it's all about the system. It's all about the system. Yeah. So let's do go a little back in the Wayback Machine. Something you mentioned. You said you started off as a litigator, an attorney. I mean, so what got you interested in that?
In college, I think I had a speech communications class. And as an athlete, one of the things that I loved was the feeling that you have just before a competition, where you're nervous and you're excited, and then all that goes away and you're in the moment. And I had never found anything to really match that until I was forced to get up in front of a class. No podium, no notes. I had a great professor. and a very introductory speech class and give like maybe a 5-minute or a 7-minute speech. And I thought, oh God, this feels like I'm going to die, right? I'm going to die right now. Yeah. I'm going to burst into flames. And I thought, this is amazing. The thrill of getting through that and actually living on the other side, I thought, wow, this is exciting. What could I do, literally, in life that is like this, that I could combine this? And the only thing I could really think of was being a litigator. And I loved the challenge of arguing in court. And had I known, I think, how little I got to be in court, I probably wouldn't have gone that path. But really, honestly, when it came down to it, as an 18-year-old, and then, I'm in college, so now I'm 22-ish. Being a lawyer sounded prestigious. It sounded like it would have some money behind it. And I think those were high motivators in those early years. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And those turned out to be pretty empty motivators.
Mm. Say more. Say more.
I think anytime, I think our society as a whole creates this fable that, the more money you make, the more successful you are. And maybe the more degrees you have behind your name, the more successful you are. Mm-hmm. And I certainly believed that. I also believed the fable that the harder I worked, the more successful I would be, until I burnt out, which is really, I burnt out brutally practicing law. 60 to 80 hour work weeks are not sustainable. But in my 20s and 30s, that was never a question that I asked myself. I just was like, point me in the direction, go, wind me up. So I kind of bit into the belief that that's what I had to do to be successful. And I think it was also not that my parents pushed me to be an attorney, but I also felt pressure to be in a career that was prestigious. And I thought, okay, well, this would work. Right. And not realizing that that's going to work for a short period of time. It's not going to work for any longer period of time. And, as my world started kind of crumbling and I realized really early on, maybe within months of actually starting practice, I can't do this for the next 50 years.
Really?
So it was super clear to me. This is not what I was made to do. And, I'm a baby, right? I have no skills. I was a cocktail waitress and then now I'm a lawyer and I've got the golden handcuffs on, right? I'm making all this money and parents and family are so proud of me. I'm the first doctorate in my family. What am I going to do? Am I going to say, actually, I'm not going to do this anymore, right? Wow. I've got huge student loans and debt. That's a really tough thing to walk away from. Mm-hmm. And it might be the bravest thing that I ever did was to actually, without a job, without a direction, without a clear next step, I went into my boss's office and said, I had the best boss in the world. I said, I love you. You're amazing. If this is what I was meant to do, I would be in my happy place. This is supposed to be the epitome of success. I'm making a ton of money. I'm working for a big international law firm. I've got the nice corner office with the view. And I'm miserable. And I often joke that I had my ladder on the wrong building and I climbed to the top of the ladder and I'm looking around. I'm like, wait, what? No, this cannot be it. Like, this is not working for me.
Right.
And, thankfully, through some years of self-reflection, I just serendipitously ran into some guys that kept being at the gym at the same time that I was. I thought everybody that went to the gym at 10:30 in the morning was unemployed like me.
Right.
Because, at that age, everyone's just like us, right? That's like the biased window that we look through. and started to get to know these guys and talking to them, and they were Seattle firefighters, and they were like, man, you'd be a great firefighter. I'm like, I don't even know what you guys do. Right. Started to get curious, and decided to take that 85-pound bicep curl test. Passed the first time. I love a good challenge, right?
Yeah.
And in the fire service, I adore. I mean, the actual work that I was able to do for those 15 years was life-changing. Hardly anybody can go to work and say that they went into somebody's living room, somebody was dead on the floor, their family is ripped apart, and my crew and I can come in, start CPR, start shock protocols, get the medics on board, and that patient will leave in a gurney, go to the ER, come back to the station 3 or 4 days later, knock on our door, and say, hey, thanks. That's a pretty cool job. Yeah. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool job.
Ma'am. It is. Wow. Yeah, your serendipitous, whatever way you'd like to describe it, transition from one thing to another. And it sounds very Gen Z of you. Because we're running into more people that's more the norm, but that couldn't have been the norm, years ago. Because I think as a society, we were just more, and I know what we're being raised by a generation that says, well, you got to have a good job. You got to get a good job, stay there for 30 years. You're going to retire, have a pension, buy a house, all the stuff, all the traditional stuff. And to make a decision like that and have folks tell you, oh, you're just, when you're going back. Did anybody do that? This is just a phase you're going through, right?
My parents were really happy about that.
Right. Yeah.
You did what? And they thought, bless their hearts, they thought, it'll just take a little while. She'll go back. I mean, clearly, she's going to go back. Yeah, no back.
Not so much.
No.
Okay. So you run into some folks, you run into some guys, probably no accident, they were guys, at the gym, talking about the fire service thing. So you said it was, they were Seattle firefighters.
They were.
Okay. So, so how does the fire service thing go for you to get started? What did that look like?
Well, as you know, Seattle at the time, this was in the mid to late 90s, had an entry test that was found to be created for the sole purpose of keeping women out of the fire service, by a guy who traveled around the nation and basically said, hey, I can create a physical test for you, but no woman will pass. And he was quite successful. Seattle, I think, was sued so many years in a row that they finally decided to create a test that was more likely to be consistent with.
Let me tell you about that. Yeah, well, let me tell you about that. They what happened is they joined a thing called the Joint Labor Management Wellness Fitness Initiative, and they actually had a chief of training at the time who was kind of instructed by the chief to do something about the fact that the quote-unquote washout rate was 40% consistent across the board, and it was 70% for women and people of color. Yeah, that's right. You know who that is. Who got to go in there and run the first. So I have the honor of being honor or dishonor, whatever, depending on how people look at it, of overseeing the first candidate ability test, the CPAT, ever done in the country. We didn't do it right, but we did it to be able to say we were the first ones to do it.
Nice.
And I didn't actually know the story of where the other test came from, though. That's something that I didn't know.
Yeah, of course, it has quite a history behind it.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about requiring a candidate to do a standing 85-pound bicep curl with your heels against the wall your butt cheek and your shoulders against the wall. And there's a guy on either side of you looking to see if you come off the wall in any way.
Yes.
So it is literally an 85-pound bicep curl.
Wow.
And, as a female, if you got to that part of the test and made it, you probably were going to be able to do the rest of it. Although, the hose pull up the tower was also really challenging. But if you knew the technique, which I had a group of women who were teaching a group of female candidates the technique, I had a guy right in front of me of the test. Oh man, he was probably, 6'2", 230, solid block of muscle. He failed on that, pulling that hose bundle up. I knew the technique, and I popped it up.
Wow.
So, but, that's a somewhat reasonable test. The standing bicep curl, no, not so much.
Yeah. Tell me in all of your years of being in the fire rescue service, what task you were going to actually perform on the job that was going to require you to lift 85 pounds with your back against the wall.
Yeah, never. First of all, horrible form, right?
Terrible.
And, one of the first things that you learn in the fire service, and of course, as a female and the only female, I always resisted it. But, you're always going to be faster if you say to somebody, hey, grab the other half or the other handle on this generator. Let's run this across the field.
Right.
Now, I could pick that up. Yeah, absolutely, I could. And I might tweak my back, and I'm going to be slower than if somebody else grabbed it. So, yeah, you're always working, always as a team. You are never doing things alone in the fire service.
Right. So,
no, the odds of me ever doing that were pretty much like -0.
Yes, absolutely. So, just based on some details that, again, I didn't know, something happened with the Seattle experience that caused you to go someplace else.
Yeah. So back in the day, they had what they called a pre-recruit academy.
Yes.
Where they put female candidates in to essentially a little mini recruit school. Lasted 8 weeks.
Yes.
And it butted right up to the full-scale academy.
Yes.
And the idea, I think, was brilliant. Let's prime these female candidates that had such a high washout rate so that they actually can get some skills before the actual academy starts. They can, learn how to take a hydrant. They can learn how to throw a ladder, all the basic skills that we're going to learn in the academy. The idea being it would be kind of less stressful. And maybe the other male candidates had volunteer experience. I'm not sure.
Yeah, a lot of did. Yeah.
And so maybe we can level the playing field because, once you enter in the academy, you're going to be tested and you're going to always be tested in a timed manner. So, even though you're learning, you're going to have to meet your Friday exams, your physical exams. You have to pass your written exams, but you have to meet your Friday exams and do everything within time. And I think the idea was a great idea. In actuality, what happened was it's a stressful environment.
Yes.
You're very few. So there was the biggest class of females, I think, at that point ever. So this is like 98-ish. 6 of us. And so we're obvious targets. We're the biggest class, right? And we're out there drilling and practicing and learning for 8 weeks. So the idea may have been to relieve the stress for us, but actually we just tagged on 8 weeks of additional stress.
Yes.
So that by the time we actually started the academy, we probably could have taken a firefighter 1 test within a couple of weeks and passed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because we had all the basic skills.
Sure.
What we didn't have was the type of hazing and the type of psychological challenge that I think some of the officers who were put in training abhorred and adored. And so the idea was you wanted to get with an officer that abhorred the hazing, not the one that adored the hazing.
Yes.
And eventually you were going to get one of the guys.
One of them anyway, so yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was eventually you were going to get somebody who wanted to wash you out. I had an officer say to me, now this is late 90s, to my face, in front of another female candidate, and he was actually talking to her. She was under his direct supervision for that week. He had been my direct officer previously. Somehow I escaped this comment, but he said, in complete seriousness, I do not think that women should be in the fire service. I will do everything possible to flunk you out of this academy.
Wow.
And so if we didn't think that that was happening subconsciously, we certainly were put on notice that, yes, these guys do not have our backs at all. We make any mistake, it's going to be amplified, and we're going to be put on probation, more stress. And it got to the point where I think they washed out the first 2 or 3 women very quickly.
Sure.
Now, these were amazing candidates.
Absolutely.
I remember one of the guys they washed out was a Marine. And I thought, okay, game on.
Yes.
Like they got him so bad that he couldn't throw his pack. He literally just fell apart. He just, yeah. So this is a guy who's a Marine, right? He's seen war. I'm like, okay.
Right.
This is for reals. These guys are serious. Wow. They will mess with us. And at some point, I think it occurred to the chief of training who didn't want any women in the fire service. And actually, if we asked, there were other women that told us flat out, look, he's known for hating women. He's going to go after you. Just do your thing, make your times, you'll be fine. I think he really hated us because there was a group of 3 of us that kept making our times. And so he couldn't eliminate us. We kept making our time. No matter what he did to us, he put us on probation. He'd write us up for safety violations we didn't do. And he couldn't move us off our dock. We kept hitting our time. So he took myself and another candidate and told us a couple days before graduation. Now we've done everything. We passed all of our tests. We're all good.
Wow.
2 to 3 days before we're going to graduate, we're now, like literally, we're mopping floors and just doing busy work. Like, it's all done. It's all done.
Sure.
He says to us, "Hey, you 2 need more work. You're remedial candidates, and we don't want to graduate you. So this is what we're going to give you an opportunity to do 2 additional weeks with this captain, just the 2 of you." And just, so that you can improve your performance. And you know what it's like at the end of, now we've gone through 8 weeks and an additional 3 months. And we're fried. I mean, I've lost, probably 15 pounds that I couldn't afford to lose.
Wow.
I had tendinitis in my hands so bad I couldn't even squeeze them together. I mean, we were fried, right? Completely fried.
Wow.
So this other female candidate and I decided that we were going to, despite the fact that we were fried, we were going to, every day that we were timed, which we were tested and timed every day.
Wow.
We were going to improve our time every day. We were going to excel on an upward rise so that they would look ridiculous. Literally. And that was the goal. And we did it. We improved in every single way that they were clocking us, marking us. And I got a little tap. We finished the 2 weeks. I got a tap on my shoulder as I was mopping the floors and was told, "Hey, Chief of Training would like to chat with you." Never something that was good for me. I was given an opportunity to, now remember, I'm a litigation attorney. I still am licensed. Obviously, I'm in the world of litigation. All my friends, a bunch of colleagues are litigators, not just attorneys, litigators. And I'm brought into this little room. They record me without my permission, which in Washington State is illegal. It's actually a criminal violation. It's a criminal misdemeanor. And they say to me, go ahead and have a seat. We're going to present you with this document. And the document is a review that has been completely rewritten from the captain who had us for the last 2 weeks. Completely rewritten. Boy, I really wish I had made a photocopy of the reviews that he showed us and he gave us verbally. Because they were stellar, right? They were stellar.
Sure.
And this was a completely different written review. And it appeared to have his signature on it. And I looked at it and I'm quite confused. And he says, clearly you haven't performed. And by the way, the real reason we're going to fire you is because you, during week 2, said the F-bomb, which is conduct unbecoming. And it was everything that I could to not just laugh, because at that point I was like, really, guys? Like, is that it? Is that the best you've got? Really? Recognizing that, of course, I could have brought a lawsuit. Of course, I didn't have to sign anything. The kind of what was going through my mind was, do I really want to work here? This is not a job. This is not an office job. This is a job where I'm literally in harm's way. They have my everything on the line. They can kill me, essentially. Literally. And I was kind of like, okay. I thought lawyers were kind of jerks, but I don't know. Maybe I've met my match. I'm not really sure. Interesting. Okay. Where do I sign? And I walked away. And then, of course, the question is, well, do you really want to do this? This is, will anyone hire you after this? Right. Ended up getting, through a friend of mine, of course, that was a lawyer, getting my firefighter 1, and all the documentation showing that, in fact, I had passed.
Oh, sure.
Done everything that I needed to.
Sure.
And got hired by this little town next door to Seattle. And was only the second female hired.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was worth it. Totally worth it.
Wow.
I wish I didn't have to do that.
Right.
But it was worth it.
Hi listeners, Jason here. We hope you're enjoying this latest podcast episode. Now, if you're like Joelle, Alicia and myself and enjoy learning from the best, then the Flourish DX Academy is for you. The Academy includes free e-learning courses on the ISO 45003 standard for psychological health and safety at work, and associated topics such as how to conduct a psychosocial risk assessment and how to create the business case for psych health and safety. All courses feature high-quality videos, downloadable resources, multi-choice questions, and a downloadable training certificate on completion. Take your learning to the next level with all Flourish DX Academy courses included within the Flourish DX mobile app. Select podcast episodes from the Psych Health and Safety podcast and sister podcasts from Canada and the USA are also included. Get started with Flourish DX for free at www.flourishdx.com/get-started. That's www.flourishdx.com/get-started. Now back to this episode.
Right. Well, again, this is a story that I have never heard, and it's just really interesting how our paths crossed, and I didn't realize it. So your experience may have been contributory to me ending up as a chief of training there, because that's when I started, is in 99, I think, thereabouts. Late 98 or 98.
I think I was the January class of 98.
Yeah, and it would have been after that sometime that it would have been the next one. And again, that's where those figures that I mentioned about washout rates and all of that. Yep. So that tells me something about a lot of people that I know. I won't call their names because but a lot of this stuff starts to make sense about your experience. And I had at least, I had one recruit that was female who completed everything they came in, so the instructors come in the last. I did what I could, first of all, to replace most of the instructors before I had a class.
And I'll tell you, it wasn't all of them. There was a couple of them that were amazing, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
But they're in a system.
They're in a system. Yeah, they're in a system. And so but I replaced a number of them because I thought I always had an issue with folks who feel, and I still have an issue with folks who feel that in these probationary processes that my job is to get rid of people. I look at those training situations as it's like kindergarten. What you learn in the first 16, 18, 25 weeks, whatever it is, it's like kindergarten in a 25, 30, 40-year career. So what would you say if kids were flunking out of kindergarten? That something wrong with the kids? No, we would say there was something wrong with the curriculum and with the teachers. That's what we'd say. So why not in that case? You bring people who don't know anything about this. You said you wanted them that way. We're going to teach you everything. And if you can't pass, I think the issue is really more with the system than it is with the candidates because we've done all this other stuff. And if you think about the cost to taxpayers, I calculated that every third class we were having, those classes cost lots and lots and lots of money. We were having the class because of the people that we terminated in the previous classes. So, this is wow, the things that you hear in unsuspecting places that I had no idea about. But again, they come in and they say, this person can't pass. Why? Well, because we're going to have to get her a special glove. Huh? Well, yeah, it's like, no, that's not good enough reason. Well, I don't care. That's not a good enough reason. That's just not. I'm not doing it. So no. And so a lot of this has to do from a psychological, emotional, even physical safety perspective with the people in the system making decisions about these things that we say are important to us. And the other thing too is, again, at the time, I think I had my undergrad. I certainly didn't have my master's in HR. So, but I knew enough at the time to know, like, that sounds like that would be illegal to me.
Right?
And I always figured that a lot of the folks who were in the fire rescue service prior to me, they could get away with that. Even some of my colleagues, they could get away with that stuff. Mm-hmm. And of course, the black guy, I won't be able to get away with that. So I just didn't think it was the right thing to do. So you're able to get through that situation and get hired on someplace else. And I assume that it went okay, or how'd that go for you?
Well, similar challenges. I landed number 1 on the hiring list, and they hired 3 guys. The first guy they hired flunked out of drill school within 2 weeks. Didn't even make it through drill school. Yeah. They hired they hired number 2 on the list. Then they went down to numbers 3 and 4 and hired them, put them. So they figured, okay, if one guy flunks out, we got the second guy. So they put 2 guys in. They made it through. And the list is coming around to expire. And I'm still, of course, sitting number 1 on the list. And I did get the call. And what they required of me was to go back through a Firefighter 1 Academy, which I happily did. And, made Chiefs Company, got the Bulldog Award, Inspirational Award. And it was great for me just to recognize there could have been an academy experience very different than the one I had initially. Sure. It gave me some more, I think, confidence that, there's good folks in the academy, met some amazing officers that I really wanted to emulate their leadership. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work again. Right. And I was older. I mean, I turned 39, I think, right after the academy. Wow. So I was an old lady. Wow. But I had a blast. I had a blast. Definitely. Wow. And, the challenges didn't end. I didn't really think through what it would be like to be in a department that didn't have much color and had only just hired their first female firefighter a year before me. So I was number 2. Wow. things like, the dormitory doesn't really open into, it just kind of is the guy's bathroom. The dormitory is connected to the guy's bathroom. So I guess we need a door here.
Yeah,
That
Imagine
kind of
that.
stuff.
Yeah,
Back in the good old days, we all slept in the same room.
Yes.
So, I'm literally sleeping, 2 feet away from a guy I just met today on my first shift. And this is hard for them. It's hard for me. It's super uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Thankfully now in the modern fire service, you've got individual dorm rooms. And,
Yes.
that allows, for a much easier kind of segue. But I had to use the battalion chief's bathroom, who had his own bathroom because there was no female bathroom.
Wow.
Ultimately when new fire stations were built, they had just gender neutral bathrooms that shockingly anyone can use.
Imagine that.
But yeah, it's a fascinating journey to see how, being an other, and I think, I had a lot of others. First of all, I was older and they didn't really know what to do with me. I mean, I felt sorry for them in some ways because, they want to haze you in your probationary year, but they just didn't know what to, they all knew, of course, somehow it got out that I was a lawyer, right?
Yeah,
so
that part.
that target's on my butt already, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm old and I'm a lawyer and they're like, don't screw with her because she's going to screw you, right? I mean, so, there's all this stuff, the fear, whatever, kind of silent intimidation going on.
Yes.
And I had one officer who was very honest and just said, I literally don't know what to do with you. Like you're so outside of like the book, right? And thankfully, my very first lieutenant was a dad of 2 grown adult girls. And he had some ideas of like, okay, if this is my daughter, this is probably how I'd want her treated.
Right.
And I'm like, that's a good start, right?
Good start.
So I had some protection early on. And I created some enemies early on just by virtue of the fact of what I represented. By being you. I was.
Yeah. Just by being you.
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, those 2 life experiences of being in the legal world and being in the fire rescue world led you to now being in a space of being able to help other people who are in high stress, high pressure, got to make decisions. That's something I found quite interesting when I go into organizations. They talk about, this is an emergency. And I go like, really? Do you really know what that is? And they're running around. We didn't make our 4th quarter, estimates or something. They go like, what was the emergency again?
Right.
And I'm sure you find that. I mean, after those of us who've been to like real emergencies where, somebody's going to die if we don't do something. There actually may be somebody who's already dead we can't do anything about. So now, so those are, but so how does all of that become now this opportunity to help people? Because I mean, as much as I really want the United States to catch up with the other 30 countries around the world and have standards and regulations around psychological health and safety and all that, that's not happening anytime soon. For some people, it's just not. And even if it happens for the masses, and I share this, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, when it was passed in 1970, had 535 people who voted on it in the 91st Congress, and only 2% of them look like you, and another 2% that look like me. Which, so 52 years later, is it any wonder that the safety-related outcomes for women and people of color are not as good as they are for white dudes? And I'm not saying that to suggest that the work that they did was bad. It just lacked perspective on how to help people who weren't like them. That's the issue. And I find that in a lot of organizations, even well-meaning people, I'm a guy or I'm a whatever. I'm Christian, whatever my thing is. And people who aren't like me don't see the world like me. And I don't ask them. I don't include them. I try to come up with this thing. Oh, yeah. So that's when it doesn't work. And when it's safety related, either physically safety related or psychologically safety related, people get harmed. They get harmed because we just didn't have a conversation about, so Shannon, how does this work for you? Not what our book said. How does this work for you? Because if it doesn't, why are we doing it? And so tell me a little bit about, the opportunity. First of all, how'd that thing happen that you've, after these experiences, you figure out, I can actually go out and help some people for real.
Well, one of the things that I love about, high performance, performing under pressure, and how that equates really with, power, influence, and leadership is we would all like to think that that's outside. And it is. We do have outside influences. But really the most power, the most influence, and the most leadership is always going to start inside. Mm-hmm. So if we can get to a place where we recognize that if we want to show up as a powerful, influential leader, our job is really to lead ourselves the best first. We're our first and best client. Mm. And recognizing that, there's all sorts of outside influences, and that's fine. But if we can show up powerfully, if we can show up with an improved self-awareness, if we can show up with more curiosity, how incredibly powerful is that going to be? Wow. I mean, one of the things that, and you know this, Chief, one of the things that you learn very quickly in the fire service, and it seems utterly counterintuitive, is to slow down.
Right.
Everything that we do in the fire service has to do about time. I mean, if you are slow and respond slow and get to the fire, whether it's an EMS call or a fire, speed is everything. You are timed from the very beginning of your boot school all the way through, right? Always, it's about time. And yet, one of the keys to being successful in utter chaos is to slow down. Mm. To slow yourself down and recognize that, number one, slowing down is the superpower when everything else is going crazy. When you can slow down, take a beat, and listen. Mm. Right? I mean, the first thing you do when you get on any emergency scene, whether that's, whether I'm standing in front of a judge, whether I'm at a corporate board meeting, or whether I'm first in on a fire and the cops are running over to me and telling me there's somebody trapped inside. Even though in the fire scene, there really is a life or death situation, but I get it. Like in the corporate world, it feels like that.
Right.
Even though it's not true, it feels like that. And that's important, right?
That's important.
So being able to slow down, being able to recognize that when we are flustered and in a hurry, that's when we're going to make mistakes. That's when we're not going to pay attention. And mainly it's about listening. And what I help people do is to slow down and really listen to the box. And if you can see my head if we're on video, the part below your neck, we've got these great brains that have taken us so far in life. And yet we really don't pay attention to what's below our neck. Mm. Mm. And our body carries so much wisdom. Mm. And oftentimes, no matter what kind of an emergency it is, your body is sending you a signal that you are either paying attention to or ignoring. If you talk to anybody who's had a relationship breakdown, say a marriage, and you ask them, when did you think, or when did you first have the feeling, or when did you first see the red flags? Almost without a doubt, they'll say, oh, when we were dating. And yet they still progressed and got married, right? Why? They didn't pay attention to the red flags, right? Oftentimes red flags are inconvenient, right? I'll be the first to raise my hand. I have often not in my past life, especially not listened to the red flags in our life and not listened to my gut. oftentimes it's really uncomfortable to say in a meeting, something doesn't feel right.
Right.
And I can't actually verbalize what that is right now.
Right.
And I don't want to move forward until we can sort this out. And the tendency is to like, come on now. Time is of the essence. We got to get going. And there's something going on with you. Like, I think that's kept more than one firefighter alive. They come to an emergency scene and they're like, something isn't right.
It has also gotten some firefighters killed.
Yes.
Because they didn't. Just like you said, I felt something, or somebody in the team felt something, but often because of the culture, the environment, the practice, you push through it. You push through it and you don't slow down. Let's hurry up. And then someone gets seriously injured or killed. So
exactly.
Wow.
And here's the thing about that. High performers, typically that has worked really well for us. We can push through pain, discomfort, all that kind of stuff. And it's gotten us all sorts of achievements. So that pushing through, that very tactic has been incredibly successful for us.
Right.
And it isn't always successful. And so having the choice as to whether you're going to push through, I'm going to push through this. Or say to yourself, wait, no, I'm not going to push through this. This time I actually am going to slow down a second and listen and figure this out before I take my next step. Right. And having it be more of a choice than just to like, boom. Yeah, I heard that. I felt that. But we're going because that's our job. We're going in. Right.
Well, I also believe that this is where, that's why that in emergencies, whether they be, again, fires, law enforcement, EMS, or, boardroom, courtroom, or what have you, this is where teamwork and systems come in as well. Because Absolutely. We're all going to have that day where I'm feeling like charging through, but my partner, my people leader, somebody's going like, hold up. I kind of see something I need you to slow down for just a second, because as you found being a people leader, your role is to create a safe environment for the people who want to do all this stuff really fast. I'm okay, but I got to make sure that it's safe for you to do that. And that's my job. So I found it particularly important when you're, I'm settled, I'm good, but I have accountability for other people. It becomes just, or probably even more important to slow down even further, because now these are other people. And I've got to create this environment so they can do their thing and not feel like they're being hindered. But at the same time, I believe that the most important role of a people leader is to create a safe environment for the people that they lead. Period.
100%.
Period. Nothing else matters. I don't care whether you break that thing, lose something, lose whatever. Is it safe for this person? For this person. And then is it safe for this group? Because if it's not, time out. We got to stop until we make sure that's taken care of.
Yeah, 100%.
Wow. So it sounds like this message is working. I mean, people are kind of picking up on it. Is that your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want to perform well under pressure, right? It's performing well when it counts. And in our current business environment, in our current economy, things are changing. Things are volatile, uncertain. I joke and say, it's just like an emergency scene. It's volatile and uncertain. You create a plan and poof, doesn't work. You've got to constantly be reframing. So dialing this back and actually learning how we can perform under pressure, under intense pressure, even when we feel like it's not true, but we feel like it's a life or death situation. These are learned skills. These are absolutely learned skills. And they're powerful not only as an individual, but as a team. So that's who I play with.
Teams. Right on. Yeah, and there's this thread throughout virtually everything you've talked about for the period of time we've been chatting. We're about to wrap this up here, but this this competitive nature that you have, all the way back to that thing that got and again, stress is sometimes declared as negative all the time. There's distress, and then there's eustress on the positive side, that the butterflies, so what you felt getting in front, doing that first speech, that's absolutely necessary, for us to feel fulfilled and to feel like we're being our best self. It's finding that happy medium and not getting too much, but you do have to have a little. And
yes.
So it's just wonderful to hear, and the other thing that it's just really impressive to hear is that too often people allow their past experiences of trauma, of failure, of whatever word people want to put on it, to limit what they do next. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's a waste, because we've all had things go in our life in a way that we would have liked them to go different. I don't know that I believe much in mistakes. I personally, I don't. I believe in my experiences that most people do what they believe to have been the right thing with the information they had at the time. Mm-hmm. They just got additional information that says, well, maybe not so much. And it's that ability to be able to go, you know what? I gave it my best. It may have worked for a while. It's not now. Okay, let's move. Let's not just stay in there too long, particularly when I'm being physically or emotionally injured while it's going on. It can't be that important, because I care enough about me
right?
and about my future. I kind of need to move on to some other things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's say there are folks out there who just been they've been glued to the tube. They've been glued to their phone, wherever they're listening. Folks listen to this while they walk, exercise, all kinds of things. And they want to know more about this. They want to, there's that lady on there. Was she a lawyer, a firefighter? She was something like, I want to learn more about that. How would folks do that?
Well, my website, or just send me an email. So my website is shannonsed.com, ShannonSaid.com. Or send me an email, Shannon@insightfulfirefighter.com.
It's been such a wonderful opportunity to catch up, hear some stories that I hadn't heard, and to be able to celebrate the success that you're having in life now. And I got to be honest, I had no idea that you were as old as you said you were, because I didn't know that. Like wow, must be good genes, because that's wonderful. And to be able to have had the successes that you've had in life, and to be able, as I said, to be able to translate that into something, to be able to help folks, I think is just extremely commendable. So thanks so much for sharing some time with me. And I'm hopeful. I'm going to follow a little bit more. I'm going to follow, because I think I want to hear more about what it is that you're doing. So if you're watching this episode on the Flourish DX YouTube page, please do subscribe, share. That'd be cool. If you're watching or listening this podcast for the first time, welcome. I hope you've heard something that'll cause you to come back in the future. Previous episodes of the podcast can be found on psychhealthandsafetyusa.com. And we have a growing group of folks who are joining the movement. If you want to join the movement, that's what I'm starting to call it these days. Please join the Psych Health and Safety USA LinkedIn page. We're always glad to have people just kind of follow what we're doing. And thank you for taking the time to listen, for being a part or fly on the wall with this conversation. And Shannon, thank you for your contributions. As I said, it's an honor to watch what you're doing and to know at least some of the story about how you got there.
Thank you, Chief.
So that's it. That's all we have. We will certainly catch you next time on the next episode of the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. Thanks very much.
Tune in each Friday for new episodes of the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. If you have a story or know of one that needs to be told, reach out to us on LinkedIn or send an email to david@id2-solutions.com, or go to the Flourish DX website at flourishdx.com. We'll see you next time.